8-1. My childhood crush that rejected me suddenly declares she wants to be with me, just as I was about to propose to her younger sister. My mom and her mom clapped and screamed, "Long live the bride." But I didn't say anything. I just stood still, and everyone was staring at me, confused. By the time I finally came to my senses, I asked Amelie what she was doing. Amelie smiled at me and said, "Hey, it's okay, everyone already knows." I replied, "Knows what?" She said, "Everyone knew you were going to ask me to be your girlfriend." Then I started laughing because I thought it was a joke, but when I saw that everyone was staring at me, a little confused, I understood it wasn't a joke. I said, "Amelie, I don't know where you got that idea, but I would never date a woman like you." She looked at me, confused, and said, "Why not?" I told her, "I'm never going to be with someone that someone else has already been with." Her eyes filled with tears, and she got up and ran away. My mother yelled at me, "How can you say that? How insensitive." Amelie's mother then said, "How can you say that to my daughter? Can't you see that she has always been in love with you?" I replied, "Yes, that's why she hooked up with a lot of guys in college." Her father then shouted, "Boy, what are you talking about?" But my mother interrupted, "Victor, she's young and had to experience life to learn. I bet you had your adventures too, right?" I was surprised by what my mother said, and I replied, "I haven't had any adventures, Mom, but there's a relationship I want to tell you about." I told them, "I'm going to propose to Haley, and I want everyone's support." Everyone was stunned. Then Amelie's mom screamed, "Do you want me to support you with my daughter Haley when you didn't value my daughter Amelie?" Amelie's dad added, "I won't allow you to marry my daughter, especially after stalking her sister." I tried to defend myself, but he interrupted, "Amelie told us that you said you were going to wait for her to finish her studies to have a relationship with her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "She lies, sir," I responded. He dismissed my words, saying, "Whatever, I won't let you marry Haley." Amelie's mom echoed his sentiment, and as they got up to leave, I was left thinking about everything I had just learned. Then my mom called out, "I demand that you break up with Haley because it's not fair what you're doing to her." I asked, "What am I doing to her, according to you?" My mom replied, "It looks like you're only with Haley to spite Amelie." I turned to my dad and asked if he felt the same. He said, "It's all very strange because you never told us about this relationship, and now you suddenly want to marry her." Just as I was about to say something, my phone rang. It was Haley, and she sounded a little upset. "What's going on? Why am I receiving calls and messages from my parents telling me to stay away from you?" Trying to calm her down, I told her I was talking to them and that we could explain everything later. Then, someone desperately knocked on the front door. When my mom opened it, Amelie rushed in, crying, "Tell me it's not true that you want to marry Haley. Tell me you're not doing this just because I rejected you. How can you do this to me?" She said all this while crying, and my mom comforted her and hugged her while glaring at me with an angry face. Not being able to stand it any longer, I left my parents' house, got into my car, and headed toward Pasadena. When I arrived at my apartment, it was already early in the morning, and I was surprised to see Haley awake, sitting in our living room. She came up to me, hugged me, and asked, "What's going on? Why am I receiving calls and messages from my parents and unpleasant messages from Amelie?" I sat her down and told her everything, from the surprise I had planned for her to everything that happened afterward. I then asked, "What do you want to do?" She said, "What do you say we go talk to our parents tomorrow, the two of us together?" I replied, "I don't think it's a good idea," but she insisted, "Let's just put an end to this, since it doesn't matter, I want to marry you." I smiled and asked, "Then you do accept?" She said, "Of course, I accept," and we kissed and went to bed. The next morning, we went to talk to our parents, and it should be noted that nothing went right. There were screams and insults, and Haley's dad and I ended up in a fight, as he accused me of being a liar and manipulator. Even the police came and arrested both of us. I spent one day in detention before my dad posted my bail, even though my mom didn't want him to. My childhood crush that rejected me suddenly declares she wants to be with me, just as I was about to propose to her younger sister. When I got out, I went to my parents' house because my dad said Haley was there. When I arrived, I saw that Haley had a black eye. I asked her what had happened, and she said Amelie had attacked her when she refused to break up with me. Her mother also kicked her out of the house. I hugged her as she cried, and my mom said, "It's all your fault. If only you had told us about your relationship earlier, and if you hadn't given Amelie false hope, this wouldn't have happened." I asked, "What false hopes?" Haley explained that Amelie had shown their parents fake messages, supposedly between me and her, where I gave her false hope. But even after seeing that, Haley didn't believe her. That's when Amelie exploded and punched her. I hugged Haley again and told her everything would be fine. My mom, still upset, said, "Because of this, our New Year's celebration was ruined." My dad told her to shut up. He then came up to us and said, "No matter what others say, I give you my blessing to get married." He hugged us, and having my father's support made me very happy. Then my dad asked, "Can you give me an explanation for why Amelie is so angry with you?" I replied, "I don't know, but I know something isn't right with her." My mom didn't seem convinced by my explanation, so I let her look at my phone to show her that there were no messages between me and Amelie. Only then did she calm down and apologize for how she had acted. That's when Haley and I decided to return to Pasadena. As the days went by, my dad called me to tell me what had happened with Amelie. At first, I didn't want to hear it, but in the end, I decided to listen. My dad told me that days after we left, Amelie's mother discovered that everything Amelie had said was a lie. Amelie had faked those messages, believing that when we returned, I would accept her as if nothing had happened. When I heard that, I couldn't help but laugh, but my dad continued. He said it was also discovered that Amelie didn't finish college and was expelled for her immoral and irresponsible behavior. She never went to class and was eventually banned from flying on any airline for 10 years after driving her car onto an airport runway while under the influence of alcohol, causing a lot of damage. I was surprised by how fast karma caught up with Amelie, but I decided not to think about her anymore because I had a wedding to plan. When we returned to Pasadena, Haley gave me an incredible surprise. We're going to be parents. Haley and I are still debating whether or not to invite her parents to our wedding, as they did apologize to us over the phone. But to be honest, whether they come or not doesn't matter to me. All I want is for Haley to be happy, no matter what.